What problems are you dealing with in your life right now?
Do you feel like giving up? Times are hard and you're not strong. Well, I know the answer for you, and it will lead to the truth. Don't look back to yesterday.
Now there are answers.
Tomorrow's on
Welcome
the
to
way.
Live Prayer.
It's waiting there for you.
Here's your host, Bill Kelly.
You can make.
And welcome to Live Prayer. I'm Bill Keller. Thanks for being with me on this Wednesday night. I pray you had a great day today. You're watching Live Prayer. It comes to you live and in living color every Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time to midnight. Good to have you with me tonight, wherever you may be watching around this great nation of ours or in some far-off foreign land. Of course, I'm Bill Keller, founder of LivePrayer.com. World's largest interactive Christian website, reaches a little over 2.5 million folks every day via the internet. I'd encourage you to check out our website, address on your screen, www.liveprayer.com. All the great content, nothing to buy, nothing to you got to pay for. It's all free. 20 years of great content that we've acquired from being on the front lines for nearly 2 decades now. Daily devotional, of course, is our main ministry tool each day. About a 3 to 5 minute read comes in your email every day. You can sign up under the resource tab, Daily Devotional. There's a place to sign up. Of course, we also post it on the website every day. And I want to welcome our friends watching on Facebook tonight. Welcome to our Facebook friends. Twitter, YouTube, of course, our main feed's on liveprayer.com, where most people get us, but we also have a wonderful audience every night on Roku. So welcome to our friends on Roku. Of course, if you ever miss a program, want to go back and rewatch a program, share a program with somebody that you care about, we have archives on our Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube page. And again, on the main homepage of liveprayer.com, the top menu bar, there's a media link. Click the Live Prayer TV tab, and it will give you direct links to our Twitter, Facebook, YouTube pages, where you can find all of our previous programs since we relaunched back last November on Thanksgiving evening. Pray you had a good day today. It's been kind of a quiet day today. Not a lot going on, fairly quiet, but there's always things going on, and we've got a lot to talk about tonight. So let's get started. Let's open with a word of prayer. Father, I thank you for each one here tonight. Not one person in this audience tonight is here by accident or coincidence. You have a reason for them to be part of this program tonight. And I pray tonight that you will clear their minds and open their hearts to receive what you have for them tonight. I pray right now, Lord, for every need represented in this audience tonight, no matter how great or small. I pray, Lord, right now that not only will needs be met, but, Lord, I pray that we will never forget to be thankful for all the blessings that we enjoy each day, mostly take for granted, but it's a great opportunity during these few minutes, Lord, each night to thank you for all the many blessings. We're truly thankful people, appreciative people. So, Lord, we commit this time to you now. Use it for your glory. Minister to us in these coming 60 minutes, and we will thank you for it and praise you for it. In the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, amen and amen. Got some things to talk to you about tonight. Let's start right in. Let me just get this out of the way. Last night I was talking to you about the sad just destruction. I mean, that's really the only word for it, the sad destruction of the Boy Scouts. And apparently they've got a file, a sexual abuse file with over 120,000 different cases over decades and decades. That will be the end of the Boy Scouts. If it wasn't already doomed, it's doomed now because however these shake out, the financial costs are just going to, the Boy Scouts have been in a mess anyway. And see, again, the Boy Scouts, it's not church, but I'm 61. I remember growing up, actually both my brothers were Cub Scouts. They didn't go on to be Boy Scouts, but they were, Cub Scouts. I think my mother was a den leader. All the Boy Scouts, Cub Scout troops, almost everyone I've ever been familiar with, all met in churches. Most of the people in those various groups were part of the local church that they met in, to be honest with you. And it was always such a wholesome group, country, fellow man, God. I mean, it was as wholesome and as American as you could get. I never really went into scouting. Number one, I never really liked camping out. Number two, I really wasn't very good with all the different tasks that they had to do. I played sports, okay? I was in church, school all the time, all the various school functions, and my extracurricular outside of school was church and sports. So I just literally didn't have time for it. But I always admired the Boy Scouts. Obviously had lots of friends growing up that were part of scouting. But of course, it wasn't that many years ago that they started to have controversies about should we allow gay scouts and gay scout leaders. And it's really sad. And then, of all things, they voted to allow girls to join the boys. It's just sad, really is, to see another just very American, wholesome, God-centered organization like the Boy Scouts just be obliterated and not be a wonderful resource for the youth of today, the youth of tomorrow, as it was for the youth of yesteryear. So it's a shame. We've talked a lot about the immigration issue. Let me just, I really haven't mentioned much about it lately because there's not much to mention other than it's a nightmare. And most people that are involved with it in any way, shape, or form fully agree that it's a nightmare. I've been reading different articles about what's going on. Apparently, they're releasing about 1,400 illegals into the country every day. One of the things I really appreciated President Trump doing, it started back on the campaign trail, and that was his acknowledgement and making public these angel moms and angel dads, parents who lost children to crime by illegal aliens. That's exactly what it is. Just incredible, heart-wrenching stories. And I'm just going to say this again because I don't think I can say it enough, because you always hear in the liberal press or anybody that's trying to defend immigration, whenever the crime issue is brought up, they jump to hit this talking point. Well, the crime rate amongst the citizens, percentage-wise, is higher than the crime rate amongst the illegal population. Okay, and the fact is, obviously, we've got crime. People who are citizens commit crimes, and that's sadly part of our culture. But to try to say that the citizen population commits crime at a higher percentage than the illegal population is just an absolutely utter ridiculous comment to even make. Because the fact is, one crime by an illegal should not be tolerated. They shouldn't have been here in the first place. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I know, of course, we're not going to get the real solution or any kind of short-term answers from where it should come from, which is Congress. They've totally kicked that ball. I remember, and possibly you do too if you're old enough, back in the Reagan years, and they were starting to address some of these immigration issues, and there was a deal cut. The Democrats controlled Congress, so Reagan, to get an immigration deal, had to compromise. That's the way those things usually work. And he had agreed to give amnesty. I forget the exact number. I think it was like $4 million to basically give a fairly quick path to citizenship for 4 million people who were here illegally. And in return for that, Congress would start allocating a lot of funds to border security and to the immigration issue at the point of contact, which is, of course, the southern border. Well, good old President Reagan was really taught a lesson, if you want to even put it in that vernacular. And the lesson was simply this. The 4 million got their amnesty or whatever. The Democrats never gave him any money. But then, okay, you go from Reagan to what? You go to Bush 41, then you go to 8 years of Clinton, then you go to 8 years of W, then you go to 8 years of Obama. Now we're 2 years plus in on President Trump. And nothing's been done. They got close a couple times. I know under W's reign, they were kind of close. But it was a very similar deal to the one Reagan cut. That involved a lot of upfront amnesty for illegals, and the back end would be money. It's kind of what they did to President Trump. Well, we'll give you money for the wall. Just sign this omnibus spending bill, and we'll get you on the next one. Which, of course, didn't happen. Which then ensued his, using whatever powers he had to free up whatever money he could get to start dealing with this issue, because Congress simply isn't going to do it. It just isn't. And I've talked to you about this before. There's a lack of will on both sides. The Democrats, they want the votes. The Republicans, they want the cheap labor. Until something changes in D.C., those are the only two parties. And they're not going to budge. And it is an absolute, it's a disgrace what's going on. It really is. No other country allows this type of exploitation of their sovereignty. No other country. As a matter of fact, if you've traveled the world, been in other countries, they don't play games. Heck, I remember years ago, it wasn't that long ago, maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago, maybe it might have been by now, but somewhere there, I remember an ex-Marine who had PTSD, who was in San Diego getting treatment for his PTSD, and he was driving to meet some ex-Marine buddies, and he's driving his personal vehicle. He had a shotgun in his personal vehicle, had all the legal documentation to have that weapon, and he got in the wrong lane and ended up not being able to turn around until he was literally in Mexico. And at the border crossing, He told the border agent, yeah, I've got a gun. I mean, very open and honest. He spent 6 months in a Mexican prison dealing with who knows what. I mean, other countries just don't play these games. And I don't know what the answer is other than because then everything President Trump tries to do to take some of the pressure off this, then the courts get involved. And in the background are people, well, we've got to be, we've got to take care of these people. I mean, we talked, if you remember, I really don't want to remember, but I have to. We talked the other night about the homeless issue in places like Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco. The incredible numbers of homeless people living in airports, Grand Central Station in New York. People literally just going to the bathroom like, there's no other way to explain it other than an animal. That's what animals do. When they have to go to the bathroom, they just go to the bathroom. I mean, we've got these kind of problems, yet we're, 1,500 a day point, and you know who those people are. They're going to end up, we've got to take care of them medically. We've got to have their kids in school. And I don't know any school districts actually that have this great surplus of money. They're always fighting for money. A lot of these people are going to end up in government subsidized housing. They're going to be on food stamps, other types of welfare programs. I mean, you're talking, this is the thing that amazed me. Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats were like drawing this line in the sand against giving President Trump money for the wall and some things that could literally kind of slow this down a bit. But I mean, we're spending in social services billions and billions and billions of dollars by having these people in the country. I mean, it is absolute insanity. And we've also talked about some of the byproducts. We're seeing measles outbreaks, the mumps. I talked to you a couple of weeks ago about the mumps, different diseases that we haven't seen in this country for decades and decades. So it's not just a drain on our economy. It's not just a very legitimate and serious crime issue. It's a health issue. I mean, it's really sad. I hear he's going to work to get more military on the border. We just need to pray about this because people, American citizens, are suffering, and it's just it's a catastrophe. It really is. The Satanic Temple, we've been talking about that for months now. They have cleared the hurdles at the IRS. They are literally a religious nonprofit, no different than the Baptist church down the street. Oh, my goodness, this country, man. Oh, I've been meaning to ask you for a few days now. Pray for this little 5-year-old boy up in Minneapolis. I don't know if you heard about this, but it was about maybe a week ago or something. Mall of Americas. If you've ever been to Minneapolis, you might have been to the Mall of the Americas. It's the largest mall in the world. I mean, it's just humongous. It's like its own town. And some guy who is mentally deranged. They're on the third floor of this mall. And you know how these malls are. You get out of the shops and, you got the atrium and stuff. You got, third floor. You can look over and look down in the atrium. This sick, twisted man literally picked up a 5-year-old boy who was with his mother and threw him over the railing. It's literally a miracle the little boy didn't die instantly. He's still in the hospital. He's still battling. Again, by the grace of God, it's starting to look like this little boy is going to recover from his injuries and he's going to be okay. When was it? Just a couple of nights ago, I was talking to you about the fact that somebody could literally shoot you in the head 6 times. And if God still has things for you to do, they could probably shoot you another 6 times. You're not going anywhere. But pray for this little boy, and it looks like that he is gonna make a full recovery. Unbelievable. Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, married to his daughter Ivanka. One of the things that he has been tasked with in the administration is the overseeing and working of a peace plan between Israel and Palestine. Now, I have been very upfront in my devotionals for many, many years. Well, 20 years we've been online. I've talked about this issue numerous times over the 15 years we've had this TV program. And I have always said that these peace plans that they try to carve out, unsuccessfully, of course, aren't going to be blessed by God. And I'll tell you why. Because what you always hear about is a 2-state solution. Technically, what that is referring to is giving the Palestinians certain plots of land within Israel to have their own state. In other words, take part of the land that God gave to the Jewish people, that God promised to his chosen people, a parcel of land about the size of New Jersey, okay, of all the globe. He took this one little parcel of land the size of New Jersey and said, this is the land I give to my people. No man has the right or authority to divvy up that land. Well, Kushner is coming out after Ramadan in a few weeks with a proposal, what he is trying to work through, which basically does not call for any of Israel to be given to the Palestinians. Now, you say, well, why would the Palestinians agree? I doubt they will. They didn't even agree to deals where they were going to be given part of Israel. But it seems like the deal Kushner is going to be pushing is no statehood within Israel for the Palestinians. Now, again, why is Palestine going to agree to that? I don't know that they will. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of benefits will accrue to them to be part of this deal. I don't know how they could ever be trusted because they have stated publicly and without any hesitation that their desire is to see Israel just blown off the face of the earth. But it's going to be very interesting, and again, something that as Christians we should pray about. We're told to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, right? And we need to be praying for the Jewish people. And as much of a threat that exists around them, literally 24/7, nonstop, that part of that threat also includes the Palestinians living within their borders. It's like you've got an enemy, and your enemy is sleeping in your guest room. Same thing. You got somebody that wants to destroy you, doesn't like you, wants to see you dead and gone. Yet that person is living in your guest room. Think about that for a minute. So, only time will tell how it all works out. But we know, the one thing we do know about the last days is that final battle before God ends it all is going to be on the plains of Megiddo in Israel. And it's definitely going to be the children of Israel. I'm sure that on their side will be those who, in those last days are still alive and have come to Christ. The enemies will see who they are. Just know for a fact they're going to be people who hate the Jewish people, who hate Christians. So that pretty much encapsulates probably the rest of the world at that time. Last night I spent quite a bit of time talking to you about the persecution of Christians around the world. And that program last night still hasn't totally settled in my spirit. It's one of those programs I just did what God was telling me to do, and okay, God, there it is. I really don't know what all. Well, tonight it was interesting. Tucker Carlson on his Fox program. Obviously, I can't watch all these programs, but I've got a computer search engine that is hooked into a special website that encompasses all the media, both broadcast television, radio. There's a whole separate portal for print media. And you put search words in and it'll bring things up. And I've usually got 4 or 5 dozen different search words I use on a daily basis, just going through to see what the media's doing. And he was on tonight basically talking about the exact same thing, and it was in the aftermath, of course, of what happened in Sri Lanka. And he was making a lot of the same points I did last night, the fact that the mainstream media has really pretty much walked away from that story once it became apparent that the perpetrators were Muslims. They started running from it when it was being learned that the suicide bombers had pledged allegiance to ISIS and their leader. And then they pretty much shut the story down from their standpoint once it was, learned that there was a direct reason for this Easter massacre, and that was retaliation for the bombing of the New Zealand mosque. And as we discussed last night, I went back to the actual program that I aired right after the mosque massacre and stated in that program it won't be long before there will be some terror attack somewhere and they will say it's in retaliation for the mosque. But as I pointed out last night, they don't need an excuse to commit acts of terror. That's what they've always done. But it was a pretty interesting segment on his program tonight about the the literal persecution Christians are facing around the world. And as I stated last night, it's at a level that hasn't been seen probably for a long time. And the main reason for that, I'm convinced, is the drop in percentage of, let's say, the Earth's population of Christians. We're probably as weak now as we've ever been in hundreds and hundreds of years, to be honest with you, as a faith on a global scale. I read something over the weekend. I meant to mention last night, and I forgot, but I'm going to mention it tonight. Whenever you see these terror attacks, you see the suicide bombers, the media always wants to portray that image as poor, uneducated Muslims who really didn't see much point with life. In other words, trying to explain away how somebody puts on a vest of explosives, walks into a public place in the midst of innocent people, and in detonating that explosive vest, not only obviously do they kill themselves, but as many innocent people as they possibly can. And it's always been promoted, the character of these suicide bombers in the media. Again, has always been, poor, uneducated, Muslims who were angry at the West for killing Muslims. That's always one that they try to basically justify these acts of terror, basically blaming, like the United States, for instance. We go to Afghanistan and we kill Muslims there. We go to Iraq and kill a bunch of Muslims. The big, bad Muslim-hating United States goes around the world killing innocent Muslims. Subsequently, they're justified for what little payback they can mete out. All right. The interesting thing about the suicide bombers in Sri Lanka Easter Sunday was these were obviously 7 young men who were, and I hate this term too, radicalized. No, they weren't radicalized. They were just Muslims doing what Muslims have done for 1,400 years. When you call them radicalized, it's like, these are just like a very small subset of Muslims, who are out of their mind, who buy into the most, far-reaching teachings of Islam. That's only really crazy people. That's not true. Number one, the 7 suicide bombers in Sri Lanka on Easter Sunday, they were all pretty affluent. Some of them have Western education. They all came from fairly well-off families. These weren't the media stereotype of uneducated, illiterate Muslims angry at the West for starting wars in Muslim countries and killing so many innocent Muslims, and this is their retaliation. That's always been a false narrative to begin with. But in reading about these 7 suicide bombers in Sri Lanka, like I said, all came from very affluent backgrounds. They all had jobs. They all, like I said, most of them were Western educated. It takes money to send your kids to the United States or England or a European country for their advanced education. they were just Muslims doing what Muslims do. And that's the point I keep trying to drive home. I was talking to, you know what? No, it was a radio program I was on. I know, it was right after the Minnesota congressman, that Ilhan Omar, some people did something, that whole thing. And I was on a radio program, and having this, it was a secular program, and this host was really trying to, justify why Muslims do things. Well, if we mind our own business, we wouldn't upset. So give me a break. That's nonsense. But this is what Islam is all about and always has been. I don't know why people feel this need to try to create some narrative, some running commentary on why these things are happening, because this is what Islam believes. I told you a few weeks ago, I read about a Dutch professor who made not only an incredibly sound statement, but 100% truthful when he was speaking to the fact that not one Western country, not one, has ever successfully assimilated Muslims into their population. Not one. You need proof? Go ask the Germans. Go ask the French. Go ask the British. Go ask the Italians. I mean, I forget which country now, was Norway or Sweden, one of the two. They were literally giving these Muslim immigrants $10,000 to go. And to be honest with you, I thought that was probably a pretty shrewd political move on this part of whichever one of those countries that was. We just talked about the amount of money that it's costing U.S. taxpayers, you and me, to pay for all these illegals that are in this country, as far as providing them with health care and education and housing and food and a cell phone. I'm sure that's another thing that's always amazed me. These people have nothing. They always got these cell phones. They all have cell phones. Now, I don't know about you, but I get a cell phone bill every month. Because so much of what I do and have on my phone that's, obviously ministry related, I'm sure my bill's probably quite a bit higher than most people, but again, that's because so much of it is related to the ministry work we do. But the bottom line is, if you've got a cell phone, you get a bill every month. Now, I know you got the burner phones, you go to Walmart, you get these, you charge them up for so many minutes. I understand that. But I was noticing that probably months ago as they were interviewing these people. They all had these. I don't have an iPhone. My wife does. I have an Android. But some of these camera shots, you can see people walk around with these iPhones and stuff. And those things are, even an old one, still $200-300. Plus, you got to be paying the bill. I'm just making a comment. I mean, how do they, and if you don't pay your bill, obviously the phones, might as well just throw it in the lake. It's worthless. Just an observation that I've been meaning to throw out there. Fine. And this is something I've been really tracking the media on. This Mayor Petey out of South Bend, Indiana, goes into every one of these events. And if he says it once, he says it 5 times, 10 times. Has to tell people about, I'm gay, and I've got a husband, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, whatever. I've been watching. Now, as you know, because you watch his program, pretty much as soon as he appeared on the scene, I spent quite a few programs and some chunks of some programs not only laying out who Mayor Pete is in terms of his quote-unquote faith, but why he was dangerous and all that. And if you see, he's right up there with Biden and Bernie. I don't know whatever happened to poor Beto. Poor Beto's kind of gone, isn't he? Good old Vice President Biden's jumping in tomorrow. Oh my goodness, what a circus. Anyway, but other than a very few people, myself included, most people have not been willing to take Mayor Pete on with his whole. In other words, he holds the fact that he chooses to engage in perverted sex with men and is married to a man. He uses that like a club, like he dares people. Now say something bad about it. And if you do, well, you're a bigot. You're entitled. You're a Christian just like that Mike Pence. Which, by the way, to be honest with you, I've never met Governor Pence. But, you know, the Bible says you know a tree by the fruit it bears. And I could say, without even meeting the guy, that most Christians, you know, they were kind of where he was and where he is in his faith. That's nothing to be embarrassed about. And he's solid. Anyway, very few people have been, because they knew once they did. I probably did about 10 or 12 radio programs that week when he kind of jumped on the scene, and I was talking about him on the program so many times. Again, to educate you, and if you remember, at the time, most people didn't even know who Mayor Pete was unless you lived in, you know, northern Indiana, Chicagoland. You know, other than that, most people didn't have a clue who he was. And that's why I took some time. And if you remember, I told you, I said, you know, this is the guy that they're going to push up to the top, if for no other reason, for a time, just to try to put biblical Christians in their place. And here we are back now to what? The war against the religion of social justice and biblical Christians. And Mayor Pete was like made to order, like he came right out of a box, the perfect person to go after the Christians. And again, I did a bunch of secular, non-Christian radio programs, you know, around that time. And it was amazing. The vitriol, the emails, the callers to some of these programs, the nastiness. Well, who are you? Well, when did you? And again, because I've debated all these people for 2 decades now, you know, I know their talking points better than they do. Well, when did you decide to become a heterosexual? You don't need to choose to be who God made you. That's who God made you. The only thing you have to choose is to be and act in a way that God didn't make you to be and act. Okay? Yeah. If he made you a male, you're a male. If he made you a female, you're a female. Done. Nothing left to talk about. He made men to have sexual relationship with women in the context of marriage. Women vice versa, with men in the context of marriage. This isn't hard. But if you don't kowtow to the views and the beliefs of the culture, and again, this is another thing that led me in a way to talk about what I did last night, in the sense of how weak Christians are now. 10 years ago, probably 20 years ago, about the time live first started 20 years ago, you still didn't, there was very little pushback if you took a traditional biblical stand on marriage, on sexuality, okay? But the deterioration of the culture has been so extreme over the last 20 years. Now, to take that basic biblical stand on marriage, one man, one woman, one lifetime, on sexuality, it's between a man and a woman in the bonds of marriage, okay? You're extreme. You're intolerant. You're a bigot. And, of course, Mayor Pete is out there. He's not going to last long, I'm convinced of that now, because this is his only shtick. And I'm purposely labeling it as that, a shtick. It's his act. The genius, Harvard-educated, Rhodes Scholar, with military service, mayor of a small Midwestern city, who's proudly gay and has a husband. Okay, that's his shtick. That's not going to last very long. And the media is going to continue to use him as a bludgeon against biblical Christians and traditional views on marriage and sexuality. They will continue to use him for that. But finally, you've got some people speaking out as he's continually to push this lie that he's a gay Christian. And again, I was on a program yesterday, Monday afternoon, and a caller said, can you be a gay Christian? I said, well, no, and here's why. There's no such thing as a gay person. Just like there's no such thing as a transsexual, there's no such thing as a gay person, a lesbian person. And the whole transsexual issue, you may be a man, you may be a male, because there's only two genders, as much as some people want you to believe there's 20 or 30 genders. I haven't even wasted my brain power to get my head around that. But as far as the whole transsexual issue goes, if you were born a male, you're a male. If you were born a female, you're a female. Period. That's the end of the discussion. There's no such thing as a trans person, as they like to call it. There may be males, who are so confused they don't even know what gender they are. There may be females so confused they don't know what gender they are. That doesn't make them a trans person or a transgender. It makes them a mentally unstable individual. And I don't have any problem saying that, because if you don't even know what gender you are, I think mentally unstable is probably a fairly kind label. But there's, can there be a gay Christian? No, because there's no such thing as a gay person. There might be men who choose to engage in perverted, unnatural, unhealthy sex with men, women who choose to engage in perverted, unnatural, unhealthy sex with women. Doesn't make them gay, doesn't make them a lesbian. It makes them someone who's in a perverted sexual bondage or addiction. But there is now some people finally, more broad-based, starting to speak out and stand up to this bullying. And again, that's what the whole, for lack of better identification, the whole LGBTQ community is made up of. They're bullies. I've told you before, again, because I've heard of what we do online, because of the anonymity factor, I can't even begin to tell you. And I've challenged a bunch of these gay activists that I've dealt with and debated over the years. I said, you're great when you're holding your stupid parades and when you're pushing your agenda. I said, where are you, at 2 a.m. when I'm getting emails for prayer from people who in the quiet of the night know darn well that their choice is not God's choice. Where are you when the vast percentage of people in those communities are alcoholics, drug addicts, suicidal tendencies far above that in the normal heterosexual community? And of course, they love the suicide. Well, that's because people like you are so mean and you make them feel so low and so dirty and so nasty. And people like you drive them to suicide. Give me a break. No, their choice of perverted sex that you happen to condone and encourage and cheer for, that's what's driven them to a point of suicide. Because what's suicide in reality? It's an act of utter hopelessness. Well, if they're so happy because they have, if a man's so happy he's having sex with her, why would he be so hopeless? Because deep down they know, and like I've told you before, because we've dealt with millions over the time, when they're really honest, when they're at a place where they want to find deliverance from that type of a bondage, like an alcoholic, like a drug addict, like a gambleaholic, like a shopaholic, like a foodaholic, whatever the bondage may be, when they're at that place and they start to break down the walls so they can start rebuilding them on solid ground. I've never had one yet, not one, tell me that they knew deep down that this just was, and forget God, it just wasn't, just wasn't right. It was wrong. And it is, because that's not good. God only wants the best for us, my friend. God wants the best for us. He wants us to know peace. He wants us to know joy. He wants us to know the abundance of this life. He only wants the best for us. But you can't begin to even understand things like real peace, real joy, real contentment, a real abundant life. You can't even begin to understand those things when you're bound in some sort of an addiction, some sort of a behavior, a sinful behavior pattern. It robs you of everything. And while maybe you're watching and you've never had those type of addiction, you've never had that type of an addiction, pretty much everybody had some sort of an addiction. So, just name whatever yours was, okay? It doesn't matter the name. They're all the same. Addiction leads to that hopelessness. And at some point, you just learn how to live with your addiction, don't you? So I'm encouraged because some people are now starting to finally speak up about Mayor Pete and this nonsense that I'm a gay Christian. Well, I'm a giraffe. Hallelujah. Okay. Listen, I pray you have a good night tonight, a great day tomorrow. It's a weird month, isn't it? Let's see, we got the 26th on Friday. So we got the 28th on Sunday. And then we've got a couple more days of April, the first next week. Then we're into May. Oh, goodness. Unbelievable, huh? But before we leave tonight, as I do every night on this program, as I do every time wherever I'm at, ministering in any way, shape, or form, I just want to take 2 seconds and ask you a quick question. If your heart stopped beating in the next minute, do you know where you would spend eternity? When this brief existence is over, and we are launched into that eternal state of being. Are you going to be with God, your Creator, or apart from God, your Creator? And it's not a trick question. It's a question only you can answer. Because at the end of the day, the only way you can be reconnected with God, your Creator, is through faith in His Son, Jesus. And you alone know if you've ever made that commitment. And if you have, praise God. Pray with me for those watching right now who haven't. And let me challenge those who haven't to make that commitment tonight. And if you would like to do that, wherever you're at, just pray with me, will you? Dear Lord, I come tonight acknowledging my sins. I thank you that Jesus died on that cross, shed his precious blood, so my sins could be washed away. Tonight, Lord, I believe in my heart. I confess with my mouth that Jesus Christ is my Lord and my Savior. From this day forward, I will live for you. I will serve you. My life belongs to you, now and forevermore. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen and amen. Praise God. If you prayed, if you meant it, words don't save you. Your faith does. If you made that commitment of faith tonight, got a book I'll send you. Won't cost you anything. Just drop me an email. bkeller@liveprayer.com. My email address is on the screen. And if you need prayer for anything, of course, never hesitate to email me, okay? All right, listen, great program tonight. Love and care about you so much. I pray you have a wonderful night tonight, a great day tomorrow. I pray that God blesses you over and over and over throughout the day. And Lord willing, tomorrow night, 23 short hours from now, I'll be back for our Thursday edition of Live. God bless you.
What problems are you dealing with in your life right now?
Do you feel like giving up? Times are hard and you're not strong. Well, I know the answer for you, and it will